She walked away and something inside you shattered. But here's the truth. What breaks inside a man after a woman leaves isn't always the heart. Sometimes it's the illusion that love alone is enough, the illusion that giving her more will bring her back, the illusion that if you just explain, if you just prove how much you care, she'll remember what you had and come running. But she doesn't, because the moment a woman walks away, the rules change. And if you don't understand this, if you react instead of reflect, you won't just lose her, you'll lose yourself. This is what most men don't see until it's too late. What pushes a woman away isn't always what you did before the breakup. Sometimes, it's what you do after. There's a quiet kind of panic that takes over when she leaves. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It tells you to reach out, to remind her, to text her, to call, to fix it, to do something. And because you're hurting, you listen. You become the version of yourself she stopped wanting, more emotional, more reactive, more desperate. And in doing so, you make her decision easier. You confirm that walking away was the right call. You show her the weakness she was already beginning to sense. You validate her doubts, her silence, her detachment. If you want her back, don't do this. Don't chase. Don't collapse into the urge to explain yourself, to plead, to prove. Because the more you try to convince her to return, the more she sees why she left. A woman doesn't respond to desperation the way a man thinks she does. Where a man sees devotion, a woman sees instability. Where a man sees persistence, a woman sees pressure. Where a man sees love, a woman, already disconnected emotionally, feels smothered. The psychology of female detachment is rarely loud. It's slow, subtle, and calculated. She starts pulling back days, weeks, sometimes even months before the breakup. Emotionally, she's already halfway gone before the words are even spoken. So by the time you feel the separation, she's already lived through it in her mind. That's why reaching out immediately after a breakup rarely works. You're responding to an injury you just received. She's responding to a wound she already healed. The timelines are out of sync. And if you act on your timeline instead of hers, you appear blind to her reality. This is the first mistake, and it's fatal. When you chase a woman who's pulled away, you're not pulling her closer. You're feeding the emotional distance she's already created. You're confirming her sense of superiority. You're telling her, without words, that she has the power and you are the one who needs fixing. And here's the part that stings. She already knows you love her. That was never the problem. In fact, it may be the very reason she left. Not because love is bad, but because the way you expressed it became heavy. Too much reassurance, too much giving without balance, too much of your identity wrapped around her validation. Women don't fall out of love in one day, but they do begin to lose attraction when a man stops embodying emotional gravity, when he becomes too available, too expressive, too dependent on her attention to feel stable within himself. That's the quiet killer of attraction. Not a lack of love, but a lack of discipline. So if you want her back, don't do what every desperate man does. Don't become softer. Don't romanticize the past. Don't flood her with apologies, promises, or poetic declarations of change, because she doesn't miss the words. She misses the man she once admired. She misses the version of you that was mysterious, composed, hard to read. The version that didn't explain everything, that didn't ask for closure, that didn't fold under emotional weight. That version, that energy is what triggered her attraction in the first place. And the tragic irony? Most men abandon that energy the moment they care too much. They start showing all their cards. They speak too often, reveal too much, give too quickly. They mistake love for surrender. And women, on a biological, psychological level, do not respond to that kind of emotional exposure the way men do. A woman may say she wants vulnerability, but what she truly craves is strength inside vulnerability. The kind that doesn't bleed, the kind that doesn't beg. Because to the female psyche, emotional safety is not built through emotional sharing. It's built through emotional certainty. So if your emotions are pulling you in the 10 directions, if you're texting at midnight because your heart is aching, if you're explaining your pain, hoping she'll finally understand, then you're no longer providing safety. You're transmitting chaos, and chaos is not attractive, it's repellent. Understand this, The moment you begin to chase her, she no longer has to wonder about your value. She no longer has to question where she stands in your mind. And once a woman stops wondering, she stops feeling. Emotion dies where certainty lives. That's why detachment is power. That's why silence is strength. And that's why if you want her back, the one thing you absolutely cannot do is make her the center of your recovery. Because the more you orbit her after she leaves, the more you tell her she was the sun. Instead, you must become your own gravity. You must become the kind of man who doesn't try to pull her back, but the kind of man she begins to wonder about. The kind whose silence speaks louder than begging ever could. The kind who disappears not to punish, but to transform. Let her feel the weight of your absence. Let her ask herself why you didn't call, why you didn't fight harder, why you vanished instead of explaining. Let her curiosity do the work your words could never accomplish. Because here's the brutal truth. She won't come back because you ask. She'll only come back if she feels she's losing something rare. And rarity isn't proven by persistence. It's proven by restraint. When a woman senses that your world kept spinning without her, it forces a question in her subconscious. Did I misjudge him? Was there more to him than I saw? That doubt, that spark of uncertainty, is far more powerful than 100 texts filled with, I miss you. But here's where emotional discipline becomes your weapon. You don't fake detachment just to win her back. You live it. You pull your energy back, not as a strategy, but as a boundary. You stop reaching out, not to manipulate, but to rebuild your center. You walk away, not to make her chase, but to make yourself whole again. This is what most men never do. They go to war with silence. They fill the void with noise, texts, calls, overthinking, over-explaining. They collapse into neediness, confusing action with progress. And the result? They become forgettable. Because you don't become unforgettable by fighting to be remembered. You become unforgettable by becoming unshakable. That's the difference between a boy and a man in the eyes of a woman. A boy reacts. A man holds the line. And when a man holds the line, a woman feels something she rarely admits out loud. Respect. She may not text you. She may not like your posts. She may not even say your name. But in her mind, something begins to shift. She starts replaying moments. She starts comparing. She starts wondering if she truly saw your worth or just your wounds. This is the power of stillness, of calm, of detachment, but it only works if it's real. And that's the part that takes work. Inner work, because real detachment isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about realizing that your value was never dependent on her recognition. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't collapse under emotional pressure, who doesn't outsource his identity to a woman's presence, who doesn't measure his worth by who stays or who leaves. That's what makes a man dangerous in the most beautiful way, because when a woman sees that your peace didn't die after she left, she starts to question everything. Not because she's playing games, but because her psychology is wired to seek out emotional strength. And emotional strength is silent, it's steady, it doesn't beg. So if you want her back, don't do what weak men do. Don't react, don't obsess, don't perform. Transform, become someone she wouldn't recognize. Not out of spite, but out of evolution.